Welcome to the Simply Luxurious Kitchen, and welcome to my kitchen here at Le Papillon in Bend, Oregon. And Norman and Nell are ready as I am because we have one of my favorite recipes to share with you. And the first time that I've ever recorded this particular episode in this kitchen. And the reason I am sharing this recipe is because I'm going to show you how it really is even simpler than when I first showed it back in season 2 of this cooking show. What are we making? We're making croissants. We're making croissants, the classic French pastry, and we're also making pain au chocolat, or chocolate croissants. Now, as you can see, these two are like, wait a second, Mom, we make these every single Sunday, or I should say we enjoy them every single Sunday because I make them about every 2 months. And it just so happens that right now I need to restock my freezer because I am out of pain au chocolat and croissants. Now, back in 2019, I made my first batch. And it was with the help, and I'll show you the cookbook, it was with the help of this cookbook. A cookbook that is titled Baking with Julia, and it is written by Dory Greenspan. And if you've watched Baking with Julia on the PBS channel when it aired, and in some places you can still find it, she would welcome on different guests that had expertise in different fields of baking. And one of her guests was a French baker who showed her recipe for croissants. And it is that recipe that I began baking croissants with. And oh my gosh, that recipe just, it produced wonderful, delicious, classic, buttery, but also flaky croissants. Now, since then, this book was published in the 1990s. Here's the exact publication date at the bottom of the screen. I've made this recipe, I am not joking. So I began making it in the spring of 2019. Every 2 months I would make it, and I have not stopped every single 2 months. So I have made this recipe almost 40 times, and I've been fine-tuning it, tweaking it, realizing there's some places where you don't need to stick it in the refrigerator for so long, and that this is a different way of doing something that simplifies the process that I found to be unnecessary. And so that's why this episode is gonna air, because I want you to enjoy this recipe as much as I have, and to find an even simpler approach to making it. So this is our inspiration. I trust Julia, I trust her guests, and I definitely trust Dory Greenspan. And I'll link that on the show notes if you want to pick up that cookbook. There's some really good baking recipes in there. All right, so let's get started, shall we? So this really is, as I mentioned, a simple recipe to make. And the key is just knowing when you want to enjoy them. And as I will share with you in this recipe as well, you can freeze them, which I do, which makes it even simpler when you want to enjoy them as frequently as you might, like I do, once a week. All you have to do is the night before you want to enjoy your first croissant is make the dough. And the dough could not be simpler. I'm going to share with you the ingredients here. I made this last night. And all it has to do is rest in the refrigerator for 8 hours, so it lets the dough rise. And you'll immediately see here in a second how it has expanded the plastic wrap. So all you need to make the dough, and the key 2 ingredients to make sure this recipe is as good as you can make it, is you need 1 pound of butter, and you need the best quality butter you can find with a high butter fat count. And my favorite butter, as I've said many, many times here on this show and on the blog, is Igsigné Saint-Mer. And it is up in Normandy in the northern part of France. I did a butter tasting on the blog a handful of years ago in 2019. And if you want to check out that post where I demonstrate that, yes, this is my favorite butter. I've tried a bunch of other French butters, Belgian butters, American butters, Irish butters. This is the butter that I love. And I've actually did a butter tasting with Susan Herman Loomis in her home in Louviers, France. And she showed us a bunch of the French butters that are in the grocery store, just a regular grocery store. And oh my goodness, I'll share with you that link as well. So this is my favorite, my go-to. I pick this up every couple months because it's only available in 1 or 2 shops in Portland. But again, I'll link to it so you can find it and shop it. But whatever butter you choose, make sure it has the highest butter fat count you can find. And the other is high quality flour. That does make a difference. Now I use Bob's Red Mill. That is a brand, a company, a business that is located here in Oregon. It is available nationwide. It is high quality as well. So you're going to need 1 pound of butter, and you do want to measure that out. All right, and then you'll just keep that in the refrigerator. Just make sure it's ready to go. You don't need it the night before, but you want it ready to go, pulled out of the freezer and stuck into the refrigerator. If it is still in the freezer, that's okay. Then what you're gonna want is 1.5 cups of milk, separating out the cup and the half, and I'll explain why in a second. Then you want 3 3/4 cup of flour. So you're going to start by putting 3 3/4 cup of all-purpose white flour. You also want to put 1/3 cup of sugar, and then 1 packet or 2 1/4 teaspoons of active yeast. So this is key as far as make sure your yeast is still active. I have made the mistake in the past of having one in the pantry or the epicerie that was past its due date, or really old. Not necessarily past its due date, but not too active. Make sure your yeast is active yeast. And then you need 2 teaspoons of fleur de sel, so salt, and that is it. So flour, yeast, sugar, and salt. Those 4 dry ingredients, first put them into your mixing bowl. Mix them up with your hands or with a mixing bowl, whichever one you want to do. Just make sure it's evenly incorporated. Then stick it in your stand mixer, and with a dough paddle or not. I use the regular paddle usually, and it works just fine. Then you add the cup of milk first, and make sure it's whole milk. If it's not whole milk, you're not going to get the full flavor. You do want whole milk. The reason you set aside the 1/2 cup is if you live in a very humid climate, you may not need that 1/2 cup. So you watch it and you see how the ball of dough clumps together, and if there's still dry pieces after it's combined as much as it can, then you gradually add a little more milk. Gradually add a little more milk. Now here in Bend, it is very dry. However, I'll notice that in the winter I have to add the full 1.5 cups, and in the summer I don't, because of the air. So just eyeball it. You want it to be a consistent ball, as you can see here, where the sides of the bowl are completely cleaned up, and that tells you you're ready to rock and roll. Take it out of the bowl, wrap it in plastic wrap, set it on the countertop for about 30 minutes, just at room temperature. Then after about 30 minutes, stick it in the refrigerator, go to bed, go do your thing for the night, for the evening, whatever it is, you don't have to worry about it. And then pull it out of the refrigerator the next day, and you can begin to make croissants. So as you can see, it's risen, and even it's been sitting out here for about 10 minutes while I prepped the kitchen for the show, but it was fully expanded even more, just making this plastic really, really tight. So the key thing here is 8 hours in the fridge for the yeast to rise and do and work its magic. All right. Okay, so I've measured out my unsalted, make sure it's unsalted butter. It's been in the refrigerator. You do want it chilled. It makes it for a very messy part of this recipe if it's not chilled. If it's frozen, it actually is just fine to do that too. So if you've forgotten to take it out the night before, don't worry about it. All right, so I have my pound of butter, and I'm gonna put my scale away. Now what you want is a clean, big surface. If you want a pastry sheet, which I've used before, you can absolutely do that. That helps keep everything really clean and things don't stick as much. Either way, it's up to you. If you have marble countertop, that's really awesome. You can use that really, really well. This is not marble. It looks like marble. It is not marble. So now I need some flour. Okay. I just want to sprinkle the surface. This is just the first incorporation of the butter with the flour. So now take your dough out, and it'll be a bit messy, but for the most part it's going to come right off. You don't need to do anything extra special. It all wants to stick together. Get it nice and coated with flour. You watching me make some dough, okay? You want everything covered nice and neatly so that it doesn't stick to your surface. Now we're going to roll this out to approximately, it's okay if it's not exact, 18 inches by 10 inches. So you do want a bit of a rectangle here, but not a super thin one, okay? So just make sure you're going a little bit longer than you are wider. And as even as you can, as best as you can. If you need to add more flour, do so, but don't over flour. Just so you can roll it out and nothing sticks. Okay, that's definitely 18 by 10 at least. And it's okay if it's a little more, a little less, that's fine. I've done this so many times that I've learned that if it's okay if everything's not perfect. I'm the one who's enjoying these. If other people enjoy them with me, which I sometimes do enjoy them with people when they come and visit, and this is our morning breakfast, you know, as long as the ingredients are great, these are gonna taste fantastic. So now, what we wanna do, and this is the part that I've adjusted, is just grate this. It makes it, you could even just chop it up really thin slices. It makes it so much easier. There's no beating or pounding of the dough. We can be very nice and gentle with the dough. So I've already measured it out. I know that it is a pound. This is half of it. And for my other stick, don't let anything go to waste. Use it all. This is such good butter. Just make sure it's evenly distributed up and down the middle. You're going from the very bottom to the very top, but only in the middle. And you do want it to go to the tippy top of the dough, okay? Because everything needs to get a layer of butter here. This is where we begin the layering process of the butter, the lamination process. All right, so now we just fold it in a tri-fold. And if it sticks a little, you just be gentle and it'll come up. If not, get a really flexible spatula, okay? And you're just covering this all up. Double layer of pastry on top of the butter. Now, all you want to do is just gently roll it. You're not rolling this out because the butter is still kind of soft and you want it to be chilled before you really give it a good roll. Okay, just make sure that it is covered. And what I do, save space because it's not going to matter, and this is actually going to help with the layering process, is I fold it in half. All right, so now go ahead and grab a baking sheet. You don't need anything on the bottom. You're not baking anything on this right now. And just stick it on there, and then I get a dish towel or a tea towel. Slightly damp, not entirely, not completely, just a little bit of wetness, and just keeps it cool. Nothing will dry out this way. And this is the first into the refrigerator step. This only needs to take 30 minutes, but it's the longest duration in the fridge. The others we're going to shorten to 15. And this is part of where I've learned you just don't need to do it any longer than that. We've done it so many times, we just know hummus now. She smells something. So 30 minutes in the refrigerator. Nell's helping me. Norman's taking a nap in the office. So now, that's our first round in the refrigerator, to chill it for 30 minutes, okay? And then we're doing our first rollout here. Make sure it's good and floured up, because this is where you want to make sure the butter stays within the dough. We really want to make sure it stays within it, so that way the butter doesn't leak out when you're proofing it and when you're baking it. It's okay if it does. It's totally okay if it does, but you want to be able to enjoy all that butter. All right, so now we're just going to roll this out. We're going to roll this out a little bit bigger. So we previously did it to 1810. Now we're doing it to 2416, 2418. Because we're going to make two batches here. We're making the batch for the classic French croissant, and then we're making a pain au chocolat. Now you can make all of one if you don't want one or the other, or if you have too many of one or the other in the fridge or the freezer, but this will make 24 croissants. So you can have 12 of each. And again, it's really dependent on the size that you make them. You can have more or you can have less, depending on how large or small you want that. But see how, I'm gonna put some more flour here. Easy it rolls out. Just, you know, eyeball the size. Don't get too stressed about it. You're not, well, I mean, you can, I guess. I always think of Meryl Streep in It's Complicated, and then rolling out the dough. I mean, if you had a machine, this would be so easy. But we're not a machine, and part of enjoying this is doing this on your own. And just how simple it is, and it just takes a bit of time. Nell is supervising here. You see her? My helper. And make it as rectangular as you can and as even as you can, but keeping the butter inside. I am not an expert on perfecting this. I'm an expert on making mistakes, and I learn from them. And it always tastes good. That's the key thing. So now, if it's sticking a little bit, I like to get a pastry cutter, and I just make sure that it comes off. Okay, a little more flour there. Okay, and I'm gonna tri-fold it again. So we put this in the refrigerator for 15 minutes this time. You can be kind of aggressive with this, that's fine. And we tri-fold it. Perfect. Put it back, whoop, onto the baking pan and cover it with the damp cloth. Now, you notice I didn't put it overlap each other. It wasn't as long. If it's super long, you have a smaller pan, whatever it is, you can always overlap it. That's totally fine. So back in the refrigerator for 15 minutes. Here we go. So Norman has joined us, as you can see here. And now, that's the first 15. We'll roll it out again, the exact same way. And I've even done it where I put it in the freezer. And again, the whole goal is to chill and go for it. If that's something you want to give a try, it's not going to hurt it. It will speed it up and make it a little easier. And you may have noticed I flipped it over the top here, doubled it up. That is another way to add a few more layers. And I always make sure I have more flour available so it doesn't stick. And this is again being rolled out to the same width and height or length that you did last time, about 24 inches by 16 to 18. Okay. Now, this is a lovely time of year to make your own croissants because you're making them for yourself, of course. But you can also make them for fantastic gifts because you can freeze this gift. Just write out the instructions for your recipient, the person you're giving the gift to, and package it up along with them, and they can enjoy fresh croissants when they want to during the holiday season, because there's something throughout the entire year when it comes to coziness and croissants, but especially during the holidays. Maybe it's a little colder, there's less light, and you just want something good and buttery, and you don't want to have to make it, because normally, as we're seeing here, while it's simple, it just takes time. All right. Use my pastry scraper, get it all off. And who doesn't want a fresh, hot out of the oven croissant? I will never say no to that. Okay, so this is the last time we do the trifold. And put it on the pan. But we still do it for 15 minutes. Okay, so there's a total of 15 minutes in the fridge, but this is the last time we do the trifold. Okay, 15 more minutes. Okay, now a report on the dogs. Norman's on the porch getting some sunshine. Nell's right here in the kitchen. Now this point, you put it in the fridge now for 2 different times for 15 minutes after the 30 minutes that we began with. Now you're going to start to form it into what will eventually become croissants, but in a very slow stage. So what we're going to do is we want to roll this out to 20 to 24. So length 24, width 20, because then we're going to divide it in half. So we get nice covered in flour. And again, I double layered it here. You do not have to do that, but I've done it many times, and I like that it adds an extra layer. It's completely up to you. It'll work both ways. Now, if your rolling pin needs to be cleaned off, you can do what I just did there. Take it over to the sink, use a scouring brush or your hand. If it's dried on dough, you can just use your hand and it'll come right off. But then once you cleaned it off, you want to put more flour on it. Okay, here we go. We're rolling this out to 24 by 20. Try to make it as even as possible now, because this is where you're going to get your cuttings from. I always find the width gets a lot quicker than the length, so that's partly because I do it evenly, and you really need to do it more widthwise or less widthwise and more lengthwise to really push that dough so it goes longer. But you still do want 20 inches here if you can. Get as close as you can, of course. I tend to have fairly small croissants. I don't want the big hunkers. I want to just savor one, maybe two. What I typically do at least once a month is have 2 croissants, 1 pain au chocolat and 1 regular, because I love the pain au chocolats, but I don't always need to have 2. But if they're smaller, then you can be satiated and have what you like. Okay, so this is about 20 by 24. I'm gonna get my pastry cutter. Again, you can do the same thing with the pastry cutter as you did with your rolling pin. Clean it off. Now we're gonna fold this a little differently. We're gonna fold this into a 4-fold, like a book. So find the middle line, and you're going to fold the sides in to meet the middle, not on top of each other. And again, I probably could have put more flour underneath this, but I didn't, and we go with it. Now, once the dough is meeting in the middle, you need to fold it now on top of each other so that you'll have 4 layers when you look at it. Okay? So all the way under, making sure everything's off this time. And there we go. Again, you could always add more flour. Can't take it away. So if it gets sticky, just do that. Some batches are easier to do than others, you'll find, but they always taste the same. So good. Okay. So now what we're going to do is we're going to cut it in half, and one will be your pain au chocolat and one will be your traditional croissant. You can either cut it now or later, but we're going to put both of them back in the refrigerator for 15 more minutes. These are the last 15 minutes. So in total, we started off by doing 30 minutes when we first incorporated the butter. Then we rolled it out, folded it at 15, rolled it out, folded at 15, rolled it out for a layer fold, cut it in half, and now the last 15. So 3 15 minutes after the 30 minutes. So now I'm going to put this on the baking sheet for one last time. Okay, so we just had the dough that we rolled out into 4 layers in the refrigerator for 15 minutes. We had already divided it in half, but you do not have to divide it in half yet. You could have waited until now to do that. And we're going to take one at a time, because I'm going to make both for you. I'm going to make the croissants first, and then I'll make the pain au chocolat. So flour it up nice and good. You're going to roll it out to 12 by 10. So 12 by 10, and then it's as easy as making triangles. All right, once it's about 10 by 12, make sure everything is not sticking this time. And this one's pretty good. Notice all my butter is contained in the dough, so yay, that was a win. Sometimes it just wants to come out, or you have a day. So notice this is not sticking, that's good. Now just fold it in half, okay? All right, so now what I want is a pizza cutter. That's all you need, and it's actually the easiest thing to use. It's folded in half. Now I like to straighten the edges, so straight across the bottom and top. Just if you have crooked edges, it just gives you a cleaner line. It doesn't really matter, but again, just as an idea to perfect it a little bit more. So now we're making the big triangles, and these are going to be the traditional croissants. So this is where you can decide how large you want your croissants. If you want really typical American croissants, at least the bakeries we have here, you're going to want probably a lot fewer triangles, and you're going to not have 12 croissants. You're only probably going to have 8 to 10. But I like them traditional size. Okay, now you open it back up, and you have twice as many, and they're all about the same size. And then slice it right down the middle to separate them all. And now all you do, so now you have your triangle, okay? You're gonna make them a little bit stretched out. So stretch out the top a little bit wider than it normally is and pull the bottom a little bit. Not do gently, but just to give yourself a little more rolling room. And then roll it up, starting at the widest end and as tight as you can, all the way to the end. Tuck the bottom in, and you have your first croissant. And then you just keep doing that. So you're gonna pull it out wide, pull it down, and roll it. And I'll just keep doing that to all of these, and then we'll move on to the pain au chocolat. Okay, so now we're making the pain au chocolat. Same thing. You're going to roll it out to, same thing, you're gonna roll it out to 12 by 10. Okay. Now you might, if you ever have gaps, like I have in this one, just cut off an end, because you're gonna trim that anyway, and fill it in and roll it out. Then at least utilize the dough that you have and not have as much waste. So now, again, fold it in half. Okay. Gently. And then now, the pain au chocolats are square. They're not triangular. So again, decide how large you want them. I usually go about 3, sometimes 4 inches, but between 3 and 4 inches. And just straight line. And these ones you don't really need to have a trimmed edge unless it's really catawampus, because it's straight edge as it is. And then open it back up. Find your chocolate. And get the best chocolate you can find. I go to my favorite chocolate, baking chocolate, but it is something that I would nibble at night. It's dark chocolate. You can have any kind of chocolate you want, but I use dark chocolate from Scharfenberger, and I just use 1 square. So these are just 1/4 of an ounce, all right? Because each of these bars are 1 ounce. Whoops, and try it. Very good, very, very good. First, go right down the middle, and you'll notice that there's a rough edge on the outside, a straight edge down the middle. You're gonna roll from the rough edge, so don't worry about trimming it. You're gonna have more to enjoy. If you want to make them narrower, you can cut those bars in half, because you want it to go almost to the edge, not entirely to the edge, on the width of the pain au chocolat. Roll them very tightly, and then pinch. Roll them very tightly and pinch, and there you go. Get more chocolate out. There we go. And the thinner the chocolate is, as far as not as flat and wide, the easier it is to roll, but either way it doesn't matter. And you don't need as much chocolate in there as you think. If you want to stretch them out a little bit, you sure can. Because it's going to melt, and it's going to be a lovely bite. And it's just, oh, but yeah, you just don't need as much chocolate as you want. So I usually use just, half, maybe 3/4 of those little bars. So now, before I proof these, I'm going to choose which ones I want to now freeze. And so what I do is I get a bin like this that I can fit into my freezer, and then I just bin them. So whichever ones I don't want, I'm going to proof that one. Oops. That's a beautiful one. Proof that one. Pick. So I picked 2 of each that I want to proof. The rest are going to go in here, and I will walk you through how to bake them once you pull them out of the freezer. So now is the longest part. You've got to proof them for 2 to 3 hours. So now that I've got them in the container where I'm going to freeze them, I stick them in the freezer. Once I know, okay, on Sunday morning, I'm going to enjoy my croissants. The night before, I take out however many I want. I put them on a sheet like this. They are frozen solid. I put this, I cover them with a tea towel, and I put it in the refrigerator to defrost overnight. Perfect amount of time, 8 hours to defrost. You don't have to do anything with it. Then, when you wake up in the morning, if you're going to enjoy them for breakfast, you start to proof them. And here's what you need to do. So if you have a proofing oven, you want to turn the temperature to about 80 degrees. If you don't have a proofing oven, like myself, I do not have a proofing oven, I turn the oven to about the lowest this oven can go, which is about 90 degrees, maybe 100, and then turn it to the convection element if you have convection. If you don't have convection, just turn it to conventional, that's fine. But you want it to be at the lowest heat, closest to 80 degrees as you can. And you're going to stick this in the oven for 2 to 3 hours. Now every oven is different, and having done this as many times as I have, half of those times in my old rental place where I taped the original episode and half in this place, I've learned that in my oven, it's smaller, the air circulates more clearly and cleanly. I can proof for just 2 hours. So that's what I'm going to do. Let's put them in the oven. And how do you know it's done proofed-wise? Well, I'll just talk about how you know it's gone too far. If you start to see the croissants go flat, you've overproofed it. So I always check it at about an hour and a half. If you're doing a full 3 hours, I would check it at 2. If it's still not fully proofed, then you would do 2.5, and so on and so forth. It really is knowing your oven. And the first couple times it might take some time to figure out exactly how long they need to be in the oven. But for me, it's 2 hours. You want them to be fully enlarged, as large as they're going to go. But as soon as you start them to get no bigger and start to deflate, you know you've hit your mark. You need to take them out as soon as possible. All right, so we're gonna wait for 2 hours, and then we get to bake them and eat them. All right, so it's been about 2 hours. I just peeked in the oven, and for my oven, we are just where we want to be. Let me show you. So notice how they're poofed up, but they're not flat. That's what we want. So I've now turned the oven up to 350, because that's what we want to bake it on. Now we want to dress these with an egg wash. So just using 1 egg, and then I actually, when I enjoy this on Sunday, I wash these with egg wash, stick them in the oven for 20 minutes at 350, and then I use the egg in my 2.5 egg omelet. Well, it's almost a 3 egg omelet because I don't use that much wash on these. But anyway, so the entire egg is enjoyed. All right, so just give them a good wash. This will help them brown evenly and beautifully, and a little extra crisp when you take a bite out of them. Oh, look at those pain au chocolats, nice and plump. Get all, get the ends, want everything. Okay, so now we're gonna put these in the oven at 350 degrees for 20 minutes. That's it, until they're nice and richly golden brown. You helping me? Yeah, I helping. 20 minutes. All right, we'll be back in 20 minutes to give them a taste. All right, so they've been in the oven for just over 20 minutes. Just keeping an eye on them to make sure that they get brown enough. Let's take them out and enjoy. So how I like to enjoy my croissants is on Sunday, as I've shared many times before. But as you can see here, in the summertime, I will set my bistro table outside on a covered garden porch and pick some fresh flowers from the garden. Of course, Norman and Nell join me, and we just have a really quiet, delicious morning. The birds will be around, sometimes butterflies will be flying, sometimes neighbors will walk by for their Sunday stroll, but it's usually really quiet in the neighborhood. I'll bring out my Baroque music from my favorite classical music station, and we'll have already gone on our morning walk, and then when we come home, because I proof the croissants while I'm walking, and then they're ready to put in the oven as soon as I get home, and we're eating breakfast at around 9:30 or so, and just have a lovely time. In the winter, what we do is we enjoy that same ritual inside, and it's always on Sundays. So croissant Sundays, if you look back through Instagram on hashtag TSLL Sunday morning, you will find all sorts of images that only are captured every Sunday for the longest time. And every single time there's a croissant and all the newspapers for the weekend. It is truly a ritual I savor and love even more because I made the croissants. And when I started doing that, I used to buy them before 2019 at a local bakery, and that was fine. But when you start to make your own, it starts to become an even more special pleasure. And especially since I'm not literally making them every weekend, I make them once every couple months, and it is the easiest thing to do to take them out of the freezer the night before, defrost them in the refrigerator overnight, proof them for 2 or 3 hours while I go walking, and then put them in the oven for 30 minutes. That's it. It's that simple. So again, this is a wonderful idea for a gift in the holidays or a gift to yourself all year round. Now, what we're going to do, you may remember that earlier in this season, we made homemade peach jam. So what I will do, I have a can here of that jam from the garden. And what I like to do is add a little bit. Now this is peach rum jam, if you'll remember, from episode 2 of the season, from all those peaches from that one peach tree. And I will put the rest of the croissants in here, but we're gonna try one of each. Okay, and put those here. I've brewed some tea. We'll strain that. Okay. And we will try some of the jam on the croissant. Just a classic French croissant with French butter. That's really good. Buttery. Nice, crispy, buttery outside, but inside it's still that moist and lovely baked butteriness that you just want when you go to France. And when you can't go to France, why not make it in your own kitchen? Because you can. Now I'm gonna have one more bite of this because, well, why not? We gotta try the pain au chocolat. Puppy approved. Okay. Now with the pain au chocolat, the outside edges are going to be just like your regular French croissant, but if we get right in the middle, you'll see the chocolat, and that's what I'm going to enjoy now. Good chocolate with butter in the croissant. It just is a fantastic, extra special croissant. You can always put more chocolate in here, experiment with that. I found that the more I put in there, the messier they get. And I like to have just a smidge of chocolate. But again, that's why you make these your own. A simple way to bring the French culture into your kitchen. You really can do this. It is so simple to do, and it can last for about two months if you enjoy one every weekend and share it with loved one. I hope you give it a try. I know you can do it, and I'm confident you will enjoy them as you sit and savor a simple luxury with a cuppa of your choice. Cup of joe, cup of tea. Anyway, thank you for joining me. May you enjoy your day, enjoy your food, and enjoy stepping into the kitchen. Quick reminder that the next episode will be our final episode of this season, but it is a holiday episode, and it was filmed in England while I had my trip this past month in October in the northern countryside of Durham. Please do join me in a very special home. I was so excited to be able to call home for a week where we will cook a classic French holiday recipe. Until then, and it will be airing beginning Thursday the 23rd, so Thanksgiving Day here in the States. Be sure to tune in, and I do hope you enjoy.